Welcome to Rare Coins Nomics. It's hard to believe that a 25-cent piece could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But the truth is, some quarter-dollar coins are far more valuable than you think. Let's dig into the incredible stories behind them. 1974 was a fascinating year in American history, one of change, political tension, and cultural evolution. The United States was emerging from the chaos of the 1960s and early 1970s, with political events like the Watergate scandal shaking the nation's trust in leadership, while the country was still feeling the effects of the Vietnam War. It was a time when the everyday lives of citizens were shaped by both upheaval and hope, and even though the news was dominated by dramatic stories, something as simple as pocket change held its own silent story. Among the coins in circulation at the time was the Washington quarter, a piece of currency that had been familiar to American citizens for decades. The Washington quarter, first introduced in 1932, was designed to celebrate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The design, crafted by artist John Flanagan, immortalized Washington's profile on the obverse of the coin. Washington's face, carved in classical, stoic form, had been a consistent image for generations, representing leadership and national pride. On the reverse side, the American eagle symbolized strength, courage, and liberty. The eagle's outstretched wings, grasping both an olive branch and a bundle of arrows, spoke of America's commitment to peace, but also to readiness for defense if needed. The symbolism was powerful, and it resonated with the American public, establishing the coin as an enduring emblem of American values. The 1974 coin, just like the ones that came before it, featured these same iconic images. However, the circumstances surrounding its creation were different. By this time, the United States Mint had begun shifting away from using silver in its coins. The 1974 quarter, like all quarters produced after 1964, was made of copper-nickel clad, a combination of copper with a thin outer layer of nickel. While this change was mainly driven by rising silver prices, it meant that the quarter was now made from more affordable and readily available materials. This shift had a noticeable impact on the coin's intrinsic value. Unlike the quarters minted prior to 1965, which contained 90% silver, the 1974 Washington quarter had no silver at all. Although the new composition didn't affect its face value, 25 cents, it did reduce the coin's value in terms of its metal content. However, despite this change, the 1974 quarter would go on to become far more than just a piece of everyday pocket change. In terms of production, the Mint in 1974 issued a substantial number of quarters. The Philadelphia Mint, which didn't use a mint mark, produced over 801 million of them, making this the most common variety of the year. Denver minted around 353 million, with a small D mint mark on each coin. The San Francisco Mint produced a far smaller number of proof coins, which were intended for collectors, not for circulation. These proof coins, which were carefully struck with high-quality dies to produce a sharp, reflective finish, were much rarer than their circulation counterparts and are now highly sought after by collectors. However, while most of these coins simply moved through the hands of Americans in vending machines, toll booths, and grocery stores, some would go on to become notable examples of coin rarity, and in some cases, extraordinary value. Coin collectors often pay close attention to the condition of a coin. This is because a coin's grade can determine its worth. The best preserved coins, those that have been protected from the wear and tear of circulation, are the ones that fetch top prices. Coins that have not been handled too much or have avoided being scratched, bent, or worn down can command significant premiums. And among the best preserved coins are proof coins, especially those minted at the San Francisco Mint. The 1974 proof coins were meticulously produced for collectors who wanted high-quality specimens to add to their collections. They were polished, struck multiple times, and given mirror-like finishes, with frosted designs that stood out sharply against the highly polished background. These coins were not meant for the general public and were issued only in special proof sets. As a result, they were kept in pristine condition, and many have survived in nearly perfect form. Collectors covet these coins, and a 1974 proof quarter that's in exceptional condition can fetch thousands of dollars, but there's more to the story than just high-quality proof coins. Coin errors, those little manufacturing mistakes, can sometimes lead to coins that are worth far more than their face value. For example, occasionally a blank intended for a different denomination, like a penny, would accidentally end up being used to strike a quarter. When this happens, the result is a rare, often smaller coin that looks and feels different from a standard quarter. These error coins are incredibly valuable because of their uniqueness. For many collectors, the thrill of the hunt is finding these rare, unique coins. Some seek out error coins in the hope of striking gold with a particularly valuable mistake, while others focus on acquiring high-grade, well-preserved examples of proof coins. Regardless of the approach, there's something undeniably exciting about the potential for finding a coin worth far more than its face value, but let's circle back to the coin that steals the spotlight in this entire story, the 1974 Washington quarter that would forever change the way we view a seemingly common coin. This particular coin, an exceptionally rare and well-preserved example, went on to fetch an extraordinary amount at auction. It wasn't just a proof coin or an error coin. It was a coin with all the right conditions: historical context, rarity, perfect condition, and just the right time for it to be discovered. After careful examination and certification, this 1974 Washington quarter achieved a value that stunned even the most experienced numismatists. The coin was sold for a staggering $126,000, a remarkable price for a coin that was once just a regular 25-cent piece that passed through the pockets of countless Americans. But with its rarity, pristine preservation, and the story behind it, this coin became more than just currency. It became a rare piece of history, worthy of the highest collector's price. This is the magic of coin collecting. While most quarters are worth just 25 cents, there are certain coins that, against all odds, become treasures. The 1974 Washington quarter is a testament to how something as seemingly ordinary as pocket change can, through rarity, preservation, and historical context, become a highly valuable artifact. The 1985 Washington quarter may seem like just another coin from the long-running series of quarters minted since 1932, but if you look closely, it tells a story of history, design, and value that extends far beyond its 25-cent face value. It's easy to overlook these coins when you're looking through pocket change or at coin rolls, especially when they seem so commonplace, but there's a deeper significance tied to this coin. Like many coins that circulate unnoticed, there's often more to them than meets the eye, and in the case of the 1985 quarter, this one would eventually become a valuable treasure. In 1985, the United States was in the midst of a decade defined by the Reagan administration's economic policies, a booming stock market, and shifting social dynamics. It was a time of relative peace and prosperity following the turbulent 1970s. It was a time when technology was rapidly advancing, and the world was becoming more interconnected. But amid all of these grand changes, the U.S. Mint was hard at work producing millions of coins, one of which would quietly go on to capture the attention of collectors in a way no one anticipated. At first glance, the 1985 Washington quarter seems simple enough. The obverse features the familiar image of George Washington, the first President of the United States, a timeless portrait created by John Flanagan back in 1932. His likeness, dignified and resolute, stands as a tribute to the ideals of leadership, freedom, and democracy that have always defined the nation. Washington's image on the coin was symbolic of stability, a face that represented the United States through its triumphs and its struggles. On the reverse side, the image of an eagle, perched with its wings spread wide over a bundle of arrows and an olive branch, continues to evoke strength and peace. The eagle, long a symbol of the United States, reminds us of the country's military might, but also its desire for diplomacy and peace. The simplicity of the design, however, belies its importance and the long history behind it. It is a visual representation of American ideals that has been etched into the nation's coinage for decades. Like most quarters produced after 1965, the 1985 version was composed of a copper-nickel-clad material. This meant that instead of the silver content that defined earlier quarters, the 1985 quarter was made from a combination of copper and nickel. This change came after silver prices rose dramatically in the 1960s, making it more practical for the government to move to a cheaper material. While this shift affected the coin's intrinsic metal value, it did not alter the quarter's appearance or its role in daily transactions. In 1985, the U.S. Mint produced hundreds of millions of these quarters, with production facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia Mint was responsible for producing the bulk of these quarters, with over 1.6 billion coins struck that year. These coins, which bore no mint mark, entered circulation throughout the United States, becoming a staple of pocket change. The Denver Mint produced over 400 million of the 1985 quarters, which were marked with a small D mint mark on the obverse side. Meanwhile, the San Francisco Mint produced proof coins for collectors, which were specially made for display rather than circulation. These proof coins, known for their flawless finish and mirror-like surfaces, were a far cry from the standard circulating coins, but what's most interesting about the 1985 Washington quarter isn't just its basic design or material. It's the subtle details that would catch the eye of the discerning collector, the way certain coins, even ones from a seemingly ordinary year like 1985, can stand out among the rest. Over time, coin collectors have come to understand that the value of a coin is often determined by its rarity, its condition, and sometimes, a quirk of fate. The 1985 quarter, like many coins in circulation at the time, may have seemed like nothing special, but in reality, a small percentage of these coins became highly sought after for various reasons. One of the factors that can drive up the value of a coin like the 1985 quarter is its condition. Most coins that pass through everyday circulation show signs of wear and tear. Scratches, dings, and discoloration are all common as these coins get handled and used in daily transactions. A coin with a high grade, however, is a rarity. Grading services such as the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, and the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, assess coins based on their condition, and the higher the grade, the more valuable the coin becomes. Coins in near-perfect condition, with no noticeable scratches, fading, or signs of circulation, can command a premium price. A quarter that has been carefully preserved over the years and kept in pristine condition is a gem. In fact, a well-preserved 1985 Washington quarter might not be worth much more than face value to the average person, but to a collector, it could be a valuable find. The key is finding a coin that has been kept in excellent condition, free from the rough handling most coins go through. Proof coins, particularly those minted at the San Francisco Mint, were designed to be flawless from the start and often remain in excellent condition, but beyond high-grade specimens and proof coins, there's another factor that can make a 1985 quarter stand out: minting errors. Mistakes made during the minting process can result in coins that are unlike the others, and these errors are often highly valuable. For example, if a coin were struck off-center, if it bore a double die or had an incomplete strike, it could be considered an error coin. Error coins are far rarer than regular coins, and for collectors, they represent an opportunity to acquire a truly unique item. A mistake in the minting process can make a coin extraordinarily rare, which is why such pieces often fetch much higher prices than typical coins. There have been rare instances of 1985 quarters being sold for thousands of dollars, but none more surprising than a single 1985 Washington quarter that captured the attention of the entire numismatic world. It wasn't a typical error coin, nor was it a standard, run-of-the-mill proof coin. This 1985 quarter had all the qualities collectors dream of: rare, well-preserved, and just the right amount of uniqueness. After being graded and authenticated by a professional coin grading service, this coin was put up for auction, where it drew the attention of the most seasoned collectors and investors. Bidding began to soar as interested parties from all over the country and even overseas tried to outbid one another for this prized coin. What started as a coin worth just 25 cents had turned into an object of rare desire. With each passing moment, the price climbed higher and higher, until finally, the coin reached its extraordinary final price. The winning bidder had secured the coin for an astonishing $117,000, a sum that left even the most seasoned numismatists in awe. How did a 1985 Washington quarter, a coin that had once circulated like any other, reach such an incredible price? It was a combination of rarity, impeccable preservation, and, perhaps most importantly, the excitement of the moment. This coin had become more than just currency, it had become a rare piece of history, a treasure that would go down in numismatic lore. This amazing story serves as a reminder to collectors and casual observers alike that sometimes, the value of a coin isn't always about the year it was made or the materials it's composed of. It's about the story behind the coin, the rarity it possesses, and the conditions that make it stand apart from the millions of others that were produced. The 1993 United States quarter, a simple coin that most people have probably handled 1,000 times, carries a story that many don't know. It's just another piece of everyday currency that's often overlooked, yet it holds a fascinating history that stretches far beyond its face value. Coins, especially ones that are so familiar, tend to fade into the background of our lives, but if you dig a little deeper, there's often more to them than meets the eye. The 1993 quarter, despite being an everyday coin, has something hidden within its design and history that makes it a worthwhile subject of exploration. In 1993, America was experiencing a time of political stability and economic growth. The country had entered the post-Cold War era with a sense of optimism and renewal. Bill Clinton had just taken office as the 42nd president, ushering in a new era of governance and policy. Technology was advancing rapidly, especially with the expansion of the Internet, and the world was changing at an unprecedented pace. Meanwhile, the U.S. Mint was hard at work, continuing to produce coins that would represent the country and its ideals for years to come, and the 1993 quarter was no exception. The Washington quarter, first introduced in 1932, was already a long-standing symbol of American history by 1993. Its design, featuring the profile of George Washington, was familiar to millions of Americans, and it had become an iconic representation of the nation itself. The portrait of Washington, designed by John Flanagan, was originally chosen to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. This design has remained unchanged on the obverse side of the quarter ever since, providing a timeless connection between the past and the present. On the reverse side, the eagle, in its majestic stance, held both an olive branch and a bundle of arrows, symbolizing the balance of peace and strength, the core ideals that had shaped the country since its inception. This imagery of strength and hope, displayed on the back of the quarter, represented the United States' powerful role in the world while also reinforcing the country's desire for diplomacy and peaceful coexistence. This design had been in circulation for decades, and in 1993, it was still as significant as ever. In 1993, the production of the Washington quarter continued using the same copper-nickel-clad composition that had been in place since 1965. This material change, originally introduced to reduce production costs, made these quarters far less valuable in terms of their metal content compared to earlier silver versions. However, this didn't diminish the coin's importance in the eyes of the public. For decades, quarters had been used to purchase everyday goods, from a cup of coffee to a parking meter, and they were, and still are, a reliable form of currency in the United States. During this period, quarters were being minted in 3 locations: the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint. While the majority of 1993 quarters were minted in Philadelphia and Denver, the San Francisco Mint produced proof coins, which were specially struck for collectors. These proof coins were made with greater care and attention, featuring a mirror-like finish that made them stand out from the regular circulating coins. They were often sold in proof sets, which made them an attractive option for numismatists and collectors who sought to preserve the coins in pristine condition. Despite being produced in high quantities, the 1993 quarter, like many other coins from this era, didn't immediately grab the attention of coin collectors. The typical Washington quarter from this period was just another part of everyday life, circulated, worn, and rarely ever thought of as valuable. However, the value of a coin goes far beyond just its face value, and the world of coin collecting can transform something as seemingly ordinary as a 1993 quarter into a coveted item. To the untrained eye, a 1993 quarter might just look like a typical coin, nothing special. But to a coin collector, there are a number of factors that can make a particular coin stand out. The most important factors for determining a coin's value include its condition, rarity, and any potential minting errors. In the world of numismatics, the most valuable coins are often those that are in exceptional condition, free from the wear and tear that most circulating coins experience. A coin that has been well preserved, whether in an old coin jar or in the hands of a careful collector, could be worth far more than its face value. For example, a 1993 quarter that has been carefully preserved and kept in mint condition could fetch a significantly higher price. When a coin is graded, its condition is assessed using a scale from 1 to 70, with higher numbers indicating better preservation. A coin graded in the 60s or 70s, particularly if it is free from any noticeable flaws, is often considered to be in pristine condition. These coins are especially valuable to collectors who prize both quality and rarity. Proof coins, like those minted in San Francisco, were made with the intent of being perfect, and many of them have been kept in excellent condition over the years. But there's more to the story of the 1993 quarter than just its design or its production methods. There's a deeper layer of rarity and surprise that makes this coin stand out. You see, while most 1993 quarters were produced in massive quantities, some coins are unique due to minting errors. These errors occur when something goes wrong during the minting process, resulting in a coin that differs from the intended design. Error coins can be surprisingly valuable, especially if they are rare or were produced in a limited quantity. A minting error on a 1993 quarter, such as an off-center strike or a misprint, could make a coin extremely rare, and potentially very valuable. There have been a few instances where 1993 quarters with such errors have sold for hundreds, even thousands, of dollars. These coins, because they are unique, are highly sought after by collectors who specialize in error coins. The demand for error coins can drive up their prices, and in some cases, the coins can fetch more than most collectors would expect. However, these types of quarters are incredibly rare, and only a small percentage of 1993 quarters were struck with notable errors, but the story doesn't end there. As is often the case in the world of coin collecting, a coin can gain value not just because of its condition or its rarity, but because of a particular moment in time, or because it becomes associated with a particular historical event or change. The 1993 quarter, although not immediately perceived as extraordinary, would eventually gain the attention of collectors and investors who recognized its potential. In fact, one particular 1993 quarter, which had been preserved in perfect condition, with no visible signs of wear, was graded and authenticated as one of the finest examples of a 1993 quarter ever discovered. It was a coin that, on its own, might have seemed like a small, insignificant piece of currency. But when it was sold at auction, it became the focal point of a bidding war that lasted for hours. Collectors, numismatists, and even investors were eager to get their hands on this coin, recognizing that it was not just a quarter, but a rare piece of history that had survived the years without any major wear or damage. After much anticipation, the coin finally sold for an astonishing $106,000. This incredible price was not just a reflection of its pristine condition, but also its rarity, its historical significance, and the excitement that surrounded it. In the world of coin collecting, this 1993 quarter went from being a simple piece of currency to a valuable and rare treasure. The 1998 United States $quarter coin is one that, at first glance, might seem like just another ordinary coin, a standard part of everyday currency that spent countless times in various transactions. For most people, the quarter is an essential part of their daily lives, often used for small purchases or simply thrown into a jar at the end of the day. However, for those who take the time to look closer, this coin tells a story much richer than its face value suggests. The 1998 $quarter, while produced in massive numbers, has a special place in the world of coin collecting, not just because of its design, but also because of what it represents and the rarity that can lie hidden within its seemingly common form. The late 1990s was a time of transformation for the United States. The country was navigating the dawn of a new millennium, a period that saw significant technological advancements, particularly the rise of the internet and personal computers. On the political front, the country was under the leadership of President Bill Clinton, whose administration focused on economic growth, technological progress, and social reforms. It was a time of optimism and progress, and the U.S. Mint, while working to meet the demand for coins, was also quietly setting the stage for future treasures that would emerge from the very quarters being produced in that era. The design of the 1998 quarter was part of a series of coins that followed the iconic Washington quarter, which had been in circulation since 1932. George Washington's portrait, designed by John Flanagan, had become a staple on the quarter's obverse side, and by 1998, it had been in use for decades, symbolizing the country's history and leadership. Washington's face, depicted in a dignified pose, continues to honor the nation's first president, a figure who remains a beacon of the country's ideals of freedom, unity, and democracy. On the reverse side of the 1998 quarter, the same design from 1932 remained in place. The eagle, emblematic of the United States, held both an olive branch and a bundle of arrows, an enduring representation of the nation's dual commitment to peace and strength. This design had become so familiar to the American public that many probably didn't think twice about it. The eagle, with its wings spread wide, perched over the national symbols, has long been associated with the ideals of the United States. It's an image that has remained a part of the national consciousness for generations, a reminder of both the strength and hope that the country embodies. In 1998, the quarter continued to be produced using the same copper-nickel-clad composition that had replaced the silver content of earlier quarters. This shift in material came in 1965, as rising silver prices made it too expensive for the U.S. government to continue minting quarters with significant amounts of silver. The 1998 quarter, made with a mix of copper and nickel, didn't have the intrinsic value of its silver predecessors, but it still served its purpose as everyday currency. The shift to copper-nickel had become standard, and quarters made of this material were used regularly in the country's economic system. That year, the U.S. Mint produced hundreds of millions of quarters at 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The majority of these 1998 quarters were minted in Philadelphia and Denver, with no mint mark distinguishing them. However, the San Francisco Mint, as is typical, produced proof coins. These proof coins were struck with a higher level of care and polish, intended for collectors who wanted coins in pristine condition. The proof coins, with their mirror-like surfaces and intricate details, were sold in sets, catering to a niche market of numismatists and collectors who prized the highest quality specimens. For most people, however, the 1998 quarter was just another part of daily life. It was used in small purchases, thrown into vending machines, and circulated through the economy without any particular fanfare. It wasn't considered rare, nor was it especially valuable, at least not at first. In fact, the 1998 quarter didn't really stand out as anything special, at least not in the way that rare or limited edition coins do. But as time passed, certain collectors began to take notice of this coin in ways that the average person might not have. In the world of coin collecting, value doesn't always come from the quantity of coins produced. Often, what makes a coin valuable is its rarity, its condition, and sometimes, an error that occurs during the minting process. While most 1998 quarters were produced in large numbers, there were certain circumstances in which a coin could stand out and become a highly sought-after item in the numismatic world. One of the most important factors that can drive the value of a coin is its condition. Over time, many coins that are circulated in daily use suffer from wear and tear. Scratches, discoloration, and other forms of damage are common. But a coin that remains in excellent condition, with few, if any, signs of handling, can be worth far more than one that is worn down from years of use. When a coin is graded by professional organizations like the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, (NGC), or the Professional Coin Grading Service, (PCGS), it is assessed based on its quality. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with higher grades indicating better preservation. A coin that is graded in the 60s or 70s is considered to be in near-perfect condition and is often highly valued by collectors. The rarity of these high-grade coins, especially those that have been preserved in mint state, can make them exceedingly valuable. For example, if a 1998 quarter has been well preserved and is in pristine condition, it might not seem remarkable at first, but it could be worth significantly more than its face value. Additionally, certain types of minting errors, such as a double die or an off-center strike, can create coins that are considered rare and valuable. These minting errors, while rare, can make a seemingly common coin into an exceptional find. Error coins can often be worth thousands of dollars, especially if they are one of a kind. Interestingly, in 1998, there were a few cases where collectors discovered errors on some of the quarters, though not all of them were significant enough to make them stand out in a noticeable way. However, in the years following the coin's release, collectors began to notice the subtle differences in a select few of these 1998 quarters. For some, these minor variations became part of a quest to find rare or special versions of the 1998 coin. Some coins that had been preserved in perfect condition or had unusual minting characteristics began to attract the attention of serious numismatists, but it wasn't until the coin was presented at auction, or when it was carefully graded by a professional service, that the full extent of its value could be realized. One 1998 quarter, for example, had been carefully preserved in a collector's vault, untouched by the wear and tear of circulation. This coin, graded at a near-perfect score, eventually made its way to a prestigious auction house, where it captured the attention of eager collectors. As the bidding began, excitement grew, and it wasn't long before the price soared higher than anyone had expected. After a tense auction, this exceptional 1998 quarter ultimately sold for an astounding $93,000.